Greetings, parish orphans and
Wow.
retrogrades. Here's the real show starting now.
See, this is what happens when I join live on air.
Yeah, we don't know.
We have no sound for 45 minutes.
Holy cow. So this is the real show, take two. We're talking today about how Catholic fathers, Catholic elders in general, have failed their children, how they failed their young, particularly their young adult young, who are having a hard time getting paired with others. And a lot of it has been downstream of starting this Catholic matchmaking site. We originally wanted to pair 15 men and 15 women together. We thought this is a reasonable goal. This isn't something we are setting out to do full time. Well, we ended up taking on board 5 times that amount in women and 3 times that amount in men because there were so many good applicants and the need is so large. In our original advertising campaign, Will Nolan said in the commercial, we're doing something that the sweet old ladies at your parish, your fathers in particular, and your community of peers and elders writ large have failed to do. Help you find someone that's a good match for you. That's what is supposed to be happening. This is the main emphasis of life when you're the first 20 years old. But we're realizing now, aren't we, through the first month of this Catholic matchmaking site, which has blossomed into a full-time job, more or less, almost full-time job, that what we said in that commercial was so true. The more and more young people, and even especially people in the 35, 40, 30 years old that we talked to were like, wow, your elders have failed you.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of the initial response to our dating matchmaking service was from a lot of the naysayers. And what we've done a ton of interviews the past month. I mean, Tim and I are just going through and doing so many, and it's overwhelming, particularly from the women that they're telling us all the same thing. I wish I could record all of them saying this because they're all saying the same thing. They're like, thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
It helps us to weed out the weirdos. They like the fact that the men have to pay because it shows that they're intentional and they're serious. It's not just like a meat market app where you're just like looking at somebody very superficially and then just kind of swiping left, swiping left, swiping left. We really want to be more intentional about the people that we have in the pool. But
we'll talk more about some of the takeaways for future applicants because this thing is blossoming into something we never imagined it would be. Didn't even set out. We'll give you guys some tips for what to do if you want to apply for this elite matchmaking service. That's what the end of the show will be about, because we do give tips, advice that dating apps don't. Not only are we pairing people in a meaningful way, which dating apps have been utterly ineffective at doing, but we're giving tips like, hey, shave that beard, work on this, work on that before we get you paired. We might take 3 or 4 weeks to get you paired. You got 3 or 4 weeks, bulk up a little. Even a little bit makes a long way. It's a game of inches. Like football, it's a game of inches. Ladies, if there's ever a time to lose those 5 or 6 vanity pounds or more, it's now. You got 3, 4, 5 weeks until we get you paired. Let's make it happen. We'll talk about that at the end.
Can I just say too, that's on that note, it's just very interesting just from like a broad overview perspective. Like, beauty is not in the eye of the beholder, it turns out. Everybody's kind of looking, men and women, for very similar things. Like, we'll get into that later.
Well, would you say what they are? Yeah, beauty is not in the eye of the beholder. Every girl is looking for the same physical attributes in men. Every guy's looking for the same physical attributes in women. You want to say what they are?
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's start.
Like 3 and 3.
Should I do the ladies, or you do what the
Sure.
Okay. Sure. So, ladies, this is, it's going to make people mad right off the bat, but we're used to doing that at this point. When we're doing the interviews with the men, this is particularly, we're hearing the exact same things. They do not want you overweight. So if you're going to be putting yourself out there for a dating app, which they're garbage, or for our service, overweight is a problem. It just is. Let's be completely honest. Like, the guys, number one thing they all say, they don't really care about your hair color, your eye color.
Height. Guys don't care about height.
They don't really care about your personality. It's always the weight. That's just the facts. So if you want like the inside scoop on what guys are actually, when they know that they're not being judged, I guess, or they're not just ashamed to say what they're attracted to, we're hearing that, and it is always the number one. They don't care about your really age, anything else. It's that number one.
I think age matters. I think age is one we hear
matters,
a lot.
but it's
age and virginity.
I would say, yeah, but I would say age is number 3. I'm finding that it's weight number 1, and again, they're not saying you have to be anorexic. They would just want like a healthy weight, which is understandable. Number 2, body count. Body count, body count, body count, body count. They care about that. And unfortunately, in our really fallen nature, our society, the women have been sold a pack of lies, and they say, hey, if you're cute and you're attractive, then go get attention by men. It turns out that guys are very turned off by that. They want a chaste female. Who would have thought? And then age comes next. But what about the dude?
Age and the reason age seems to matter, I'll just pitch this in, is because it indicates, generally speaking, a willing submissiveness to the authority of the husband. Yeah. So I would say it's weight number 1. Guys are like, I don't care about blondes or brunettes. That's a myth.
Actually, more brunettes, actually, weirdly enough. I thought more
if blondes. They say anything, it's usually brunettes. Yeah. I've told you that for years. Okay. But weight, just no weight problem. No pudgy. Number 2, virgin or close to it, with a little bit of leniency based on, is this a 35-year-old applicant or a 25-year-old applicant? Right. So weight, low body count. And number 3 is lower age is better, or if you're older, you have to be just as willing to submit to the authority of your future husband. As a young woman, it's easier for young women to do, but age does matter for fertility.
Yeah,
so I'd say those 3 things.
That is true with the older ladies. We are accepting older women, and I can say this, that the men who want the older women, I guess they're a little bit more accepting of the fact that they might have a body count. What they are not accepting of is a woman who is older and wants to be the leader or to take that authority away from the male. They are very adamant about that. I can accept older. I can even accept a bit of a body count, but if she's too assertive or wants to take the reins of authority, that's an immediate no.
Yeah. I want to talk some about the intersectionality, some of the near contradictions among these categories. That women want a good guy, but in some cases we've had women that are trying to almost wear the pants, and that becomes an issue. And it stems from this problem that both the women and the men are dealing with because of their fathers and their grandfathers and the generations which have produced this problem. It's not supposed to be tough to meet your spouse. It's supposed to be tough to be a really good, faithful spouse and get each other to heaven for the rest of your life. Right. These young people and middle-aged people in some cases think the big challenge is meeting one another. Mm-hmm. That's not how it's supposed to be. So those are the 3, I would say, are those complete. We've conducted about 30 interviews so far. Would you say those are completely ubiquitous to every male?
Completely ubiquitous.
Those 3 properties.
And it's the feminists and the body positivity movement ladies out there are lying to themselves if they say a man is not interested in a healthy physique. It is number 1 on their list. So ladies, I know this is going to make people upset, but if you're single and you're wondering, like, why am I having such a hard time? Lose a bunch of weight. I guarantee you're going to have a much easier time finding a spouse, because men are visual creatures. That is just the facts. And what they're looking at you immediately and they're saying, okay, is this somebody I want to get to know more? And they do that with their eyes first.
Well, it's really important. Yeah. And they do it with their eyes second, and they'll do it with their eyes 10 years in a marriage, 20, 30, 40. Yeah. This is the way to create healthy marriages where you continue to be attracted to each other, woman to man, man to woman. They need different things, but the man will need, hey, no porn, no looking around at other women. We need to be fit when we're 50, let alone when we're 20.
Let's talk about the men. What's interesting, what the girls are asking about the men too, has been the same thing. They've been wanting the exact same thing from the men, and it's been really interesting too.
Well, so the first this kind of struck me, even though I dated a lot in college, to hear it so forensically and surgically stated has been interesting. Height. Every girl says, I want to feel protected. And I'm like, so muscles probably matter, right? They're like, muscles are nice, but height. And I'm like, you guys are wrong, or whatever you think the evolutionary biology is. I've known tons of really tall wimps, but the girls don't care. They want what they want, and what they want is height. Number 1. Height is the equivalent for what girls want as a good weight. I mean, thin. You don't have to have washboard abs. You don't have to be anorexic, but thin. is what men want.
Yeah.
Well, girls want tall, at least 2 inches taller than them.
Yeah,
is
and I'll
what they
say this because there might be guys out there being like, hey, like you're number one for women. Like women can lose weight and they can like, you know, adjust that in their body. Men can't really do that, obviously, with their height. So let me just give you a psychology of the female real quick on what it means when a woman says, I want somebody taller than me. They just want somebody bigger. They want somebody that they can look at and they can be like, if this guy has to throw down for me or for our family, he could handle his business. So typically what we've been telling our guys on that score who are on the little bit of the shorter side, we're like, listen, okay, if you're having a hard time finding a female, it's probably because of the height issue. What you could do to offset that is just bulk up. Just bulk up, because then that tricks the female mind into thinking, okay, yeah, like this guy could protect me. He could handle his business if somebody was being threatening or there was a problem.
Secondly, and this one's interesting, women want a dude that can earn. That because they want you to be the future breadwinner. They want you to earn. Now, it doesn't take $500,000 a year, but they want a guy that's at least established in a career. It's kind of boring, ladies. Like it's the most boring aspect about you. But and this is ubiquitous, just as height is. Don't have to be 6 foot tall, but it's nice. Every woman said that about number one. With number two, they're saying you don't have to be rich, but you have to be able to support me on a single income. That's very sensible, if a little bit of a boring thing to talk about on a date. Now, there has been disparity in terms of quantifying, enumerating what that minimal single income amount is, according to the lady. Some ladies think for early marriage, it's 6 figures. That's not the average. The average male at 30 years old is hauling somewhere between 50 and 60 by the stats.
Yeah,
and
so
that's
ladies
enough.
get more realistic about that.
Yeah.
You know, women do need to get more realistic about that. You're not going to meet a young guy in his 30s who's typically pulling down a ton of money.
Not by averages.
No, you're not. But also on the score, on the job score, men, you would find this interesting. A lot of the women don't really care about the white collar, blue collar thing. And as a matter of fact, most women in this day and age, because I think masculinity is at such a low point, they're actually looking for guys who are good with their hands, know how to build things, know how to fix things, or are blue collar. I've actually been really surprised about that.
It's very, very, I think, a healthy, practical aspect of females adjusting their expectations and adjusting what they're attracted to. And it's perfectly consistent with what we're telling young people in Don't Go to College. Yeah. Where it's like, dude, go become an electrician or a plumber's apprentice. I don't care if you're smart. If you're really smart, you'll be like, I can be making $90,000 by the time I'm 22. So that's really good. And you're actually coming far closer to meeting the high expectations of some of the ladies out there that want 6 figures than the college boys at 22. So that's the second thing all females want. The third thing they all want is a patriarchal dude that will boss them around. Every single woman in our field. This means we did a decent enough job at marketing and saying, look, don't apply if you don't want the man to be manly, the man to be in charge, whether you're the man or the woman. We're not interested in men who are interested in being bossed around. We're not interested in women who want to be the bosses. So those three things go together. Height, weight, let's just look at this. Height, weight, and then earning potential, and what did we say? What was the second one? Because it goes
for women, it was the height. Right? What are you talking about, men or women?
Men,
because I was thinking about something else. But
earning. So it's the earning potential goes with what men want: the young body count, the low body count.
Yeah.
And then the third is men should be patriarchs and women should want patriarchs.
Can we say too? The other thing that I would even say was we were going to mention this with even the number one with the height is, let's be honest, ladies and guys, it's the truth. Pornography use. Women find it super creepy and weird. Like, I know for guys, I'm a realist. Like, I understand for guys in this culture, it's very hard to meet somebody who doesn't have at least seen that once or twice. But I'm just telling you from a female perspective, and all the women that I've interviewed say the same thing. They're more willing to accept a guy who's had a sexual past. He's had past sexual partners than a guy who watches pornography. Pornography is inherently creepier because it's you can do it like on your own. You don't actually have to go out there and involve society and another person. Doesn't Aristotle say something about like prostitution is, what does he say? Like, I thought
Aquinas.
Aquinas. I'm sorry, Aquinas.
Prostitution's not nearly the danger that pornography is, if you
Right.
put together some porn.
Because you have to go out. You have to solicit a prostitute. You have to see people. People might see you in public doing this. Pornography is creepy because you could do this privately and nobody could know except for the good Lord who knows everything. And it becomes more of an addictive thing because it's so easily accessible. And for women, that just reeks of weakness, somebody who cannot control themselves. It's pervy, it's gross. And so overwhelmingly, I'd say the women we talk to would be much, they accept a body count more than they accept a guy who watches pornography. So if you're a guy out there who's single and has that issue, first off, we don't really accept that in our young men that we're accepting. We don't want that issue at all. And we'll kick you out if we find out that you're currently struggling with that. Just stop it altogether. It's so gross.
Yeah, we sifted through it pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, this wasn't just a show about. It's not really a show about the return matchmaking, though. We're talking about some of the takeaways from it, and we'll, as we promised, give a few additional pointers at the end if you're interested in applying. What we really, I mean, the takeaways are interesting because the market is so much larger than it seemed to be to us 6 weeks ago. And 6 weeks ago, we knew there was a need. But the need is so much larger than that ostensible need because our elders have failed us so badly. They failed us so badly that most people out there who are unmarried, whether they're 20, 25, 30, 35, they think the big challenge in life is to meet someone who's a virgin and 25 or 28, or if they're not a virgin, has a low body count of 1 or 2. I was talking about this with Pearly Things when I went on her show, and it was like, she seemed to think this is just impossible. And she's like, oh, how do you know they're really virgins? And I'm like, well, you could pretty much tell. You can tell when you talk to someone that's not jaded on life yet. You can also check them. They tend to hang out in Latin mass communities. They tend to be into chastity and the trappings of chastity, which is sanctifying things. And if they say, yeah, I'm into sanctifying things, then you ask, okay, what is your daily devotional? And they don't know what you're talking about. You pray novenas? Do you pray the Angelus at lunch? Do you pray rosaries? Do you have a special saint you're devoted to? And they can't enumerate that. That's one way to check. And Pearl really seemed staggered by that. The general point is, the challenge in life isn't supposed to be meeting someone who's a decent match for you. There are young people everywhere. There's young people down the street. Meeting good young people is much harder than it used to be because largely everyone's been pushed into college, which is a contraception filter. It's just the globalist
factory.
It's a smut factory, and it pushes people to not get married. Even conservative parents are telling their kids, don't get married until you have like a graduate degree. And they're playing into the contraceptive mindset of the population control globalists. So it's an outsized demand that shocked even us, and we're like the patriarchy people. And so I wanted to talk and see what you thought about it, because we haven't even really debriefed. Isn't it interesting when, particularly when we talk to the girls, it's like they're traditional, so they know to love their fathers, honor your father and mother. But it doesn't seem to have set in that this is only necessary because of the abject failure of the elder generation and maybe the one above that. So it's one thing to be like, I like the TLM, I go to the Latin Mass, I want someone, and my father always brought me to the Latin Mass. Cool. But like, what a father ought to be doing, and this is not a LARP, he ought to be, when a girl is 12, 13, 14, 15, looking around the neighborhood or the school or the homeschool co-op or just the parish that he takes you to, and making friends with the father of young men who look like are they fit? Are they able-bodied? Are they athletic? That's important. Do they seem virtuous? talk to that young man, then befriend his father and start playing matchmaker. This is not a LARP. This is how people got together until like 1900. And so there's some impasse between a lot of the young women are like, hey, I love my parents. I just want a relationship like them. That's traditionalism. So there's an impasse between that and the lack of traditionalism where the parents just kick these young women out into the world, most often through telling them to go to college, where most young women lose their virtue for the first time if they haven't lost it in high school. And they're like, hey, I sent her to college. I paid her tuition. There's nothing traditional about that. Could you say a word about how that struck you?
What I've noticed, and again, sorry, boomer dads, but I think what's going on with the boomer dad generation is that they thought that the greatest thing they could ever do for their family is earning a solid dollar. And a lot of these fathers they're not intentional. They're very intentional at work. They're very upstanding. They work really hard. They make great money. Their employees and their employers love them. But your most important job is the hours at home with your family. And yes, of course, as a provider, you're supposed to provide, but that's just like it's like a kid saying to like the mom, like, you know, like, oh, what were we saying about like, if you give your kid food, it's like a parent saying, oh, well, I gave you food. It's like, well, that's bare minimum. You're supposed to do that. You know,
I did my job.
I did my job. You got food today. It's like, that's how a lot of these dads are with their dumb jobs. It's like, listen, I don't care. We always say this. I certainly don't want to hear a woman talking about her job because I want to like kill myself when a woman is speaking about a job, but a man too. I don't care about your job. What I care about is what are you doing with your family? How are you leading them? How intentional are you with your children, especially men, your daughters? How much time are you spending with them? How much are you growing and helping them grow in virtue, leading them in prayer, taking them to mass, making sure your daughters and your sons are going to confession regularly? Pulling in $1 is not enough. It's bare minimum.
All of that, I would say, is part of the bare minimum as well, along with have an eye out for your daughters.
Yeah.
There's a weird anti-courtship sentiment I hear with a lot of trad dads at the TLM, where they're like, I don't want my daughter dating till she's whatever, 20. It's like, how are you expecting her to find a good young man? You ought to start looking around to befriend, like I say, a father of a potential match at the Latin Mass or whatever Mass or at the Novus Ordo when your daughter's 12, 13, 14. I've already started thinking about it with Mags.
Yeah, we're looking into families now. I mean, obviously, our daughters are very, very young, but we at least preliminarily have our eyes out, and families in the neighborhood, fellow Catholics that we know, that when our children are of the right age to start like introducing our families, having get-togethers, just intentional parenting to help your kids. What we're finding with a lot of these young singles is that they're outright, and I'm not saying this to be boastful, but they're outright like thanking us profusely. They're like, thank you so much for this service because I don't know how I'm going to meet people, because they don't have people helping them. And we've had priests, even online vocally, that are criticizing us. And I'm just asking these people, what are you doing? What are you doing to help these young Catholic men and women to find each other? The answer is nothing. You're doing nothing. And then you want to point fingers at other people who are trying to help these people meet each other and making not even funny jokes. But yeah, I will say this. So I'm seeing some comments in here. Always, if you have questions, put them in super chats. We'll keep an eye out for those. But people are saying, again, we weren't just doing a show boosting the dating site. We were talking about takeaways. But people are curious. The default settings are, because we don't have a large enough pool to match people in only their cities. We've had one match so far in the same metropolitan area. We've matched 6 couples so far, but one match is in the same city.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think that 1-to-6 ratio is going to hold. I think it's going to be far smaller. No, I'm serious.
Yeah, no,
I'm
you're
dead
right.
serious.
Yeah.
We're not going to find 1 out of every 6 in the same city. They're all over America, even the UK. So, yes, the default setting is the men should be prepared to, buy a plane ticket and go out there and visit. If they're liking each other, they're enjoying the Zoom calls the way a few people are already. heading toward marriage, this is a site that's going to get people married. Then we expect the men to travel during the dating to the women. The other side of the default setting is, of course, we're patriarchy people. The men are the ones in charge. The men are the breadwinners. So the women are going to be, by default setting, relocating once they've pair bonded and they're like, we want to make this happen. The women are going to go where the men are. And I got men that are like, well, I don't want my daughters moving away. Well, again, think about this realistically, man. Most guys out there, whether you're Gen X, Boomer, millennials like us, have had your brain swiped, where getting your daughters and sons pair bonded to someone high quality, you think you do that on your own. I gave you a crappy K through 12 Catholic education, and then I saved up like $80 gazillion for your college tuition. That's not your job. Don't go to college. Look, that's going to be gone anyway. Agenda 2030, that's going to be done in 2027. You guys need to store up the nuts for the winter. And what the young people ought to be doing, by young people I mean 14, 15, 16, start looking out for someone at your parish. And if you can't find a cool young man for your daughter at the parish, that's on you. Then they're going to wind up on, hopefully, this site. And that does mean, unless you beat the odds and find a good young man there, they're going to have to look around. And these are national dating services. But I mean, I will say this, for return matchmaking, www.retvrn.us, it's one of a kind. There's nothing else like this. We had one applicant ask us, what makes you guys qualified to do this? And I was like, okay, that's a fair question. Here's the answer. Where else do you have a pro-patriarchy matchmaking Catholic service? You got Father Mike Schmitz and Ascension Press saying Enlightenment, sex egalitarianism is true. Men and women are the same thing. Mm-hmm. So the patriarchy's false. Wifely submission is bad. So the patriarchy is false. So Christianity's teachings on the way households operate are false. No one that I know of is doing a matchmaking service. You have the Catholic Match, which is failing everyone. And everyone's body count goes up throughout the 20s and the 30s. They're having sex with each other and they can't find...
Another failure of the fathers.
So we're the only one doing this. Yes, another failure of the father. We're the only one doing it. So that's a credential right there. And not to mention, the ranks got swelled in the first 2 months of this project. We took a call on May the 6th. May the 7th. And that's when this idea blossomed. It has exploded because there's nothing else like it. That's the credential. The credential is, I've helped my high school students when I taught them to meet each other, get together, stay together, and say, you guys stay together, get married in college. I gave them the counseling they need. Very close friends now. We've done that for 3 or 4 different couples who are now married with kids. We got good credentials in the traditional sense of the term, but here's the sassier way to put it. There's nothing else out there like it. What are you going to get? Advice from Father Mike Schmitz? That is divorce advice. Okay? That's divorce advice.
Well, and also
you're equal? Mm-hmm. Husband and wife? No.
No, you're not.
Get it there if
you're
you
not
want
equal. You're
Good
not
luck.
equal. There's a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy, which is funny to hear a priest say that because he would acknowledge there's a hierarchy in the church, but in marriage, no. Even though the Bible specifically says that like 100 times.
Right, yeah. What if someone just gets up and is like, you sit down, I'm going to give the homily today. Father
I'm going to be
Schmitz.
doing confessions today, everybody. Father Mike, you sit down in the back. I'm just as equal as you
Yeah,
are.
go take a smoke break. Father Mike Schmitz. I'll filter into the confessional. What the hell is wrong with these people? Okay, so that's kind of the answer to that. Yes,
Also, yeah.
Absolutely. Geography is the one. If you consider this a weak point, it's a weak point. I don't. But geographically, yes, all of the couples that we're going to be pairing, aside from the one, which was just sheer luck, because we're pairing people for compatibility, temperamentally, and life experience. We're not pairing people because they both happen to live someplace. That would be a superficial metric, which we have criticized in the dating sites.
Right.
So no, yeah, you're probably going to be paired with a really, really good match. You're going to be thrilled with. in someone across the country, and the men are responsible for coming out to you and making the courtship process happen. But of course, the women are going to be responsible for moving to where the men are and have jobs, and the men get to decide as the heads.
And also, I always say this to women that I've counseled on marriage, and women who are entering marriage or wives currently. I'm saying, you want to talk to somebody. You want somebody in your life, an elder woman, an elder wife in your life, whose husband she knows how to please a man. Her husband does not have a pornography addiction. He's clearly into her. They're enjoying the sacraments together. They have a healthy, good relationship. So when people ask us that question, it's like, I have 100 flaws, but one of the things I know I'm good at is my marriage. And so when I even look to advice for other women, I want to know, okay, is your husband happy with you? Doesn't have a pornography addiction, meaning you guys are clicking on all cylinders. Those are the women that I want to get advice from, and I want helping me if I need advice in my own life.
Yeah, JS. So we could use actually more men. The hilarious part about the beginning of this, I see JS in the comments. Go to www.return.us. That's RETVRN.us. Fill out an application. We've been very picky so far because the applicant pool is so much larger than we expected. People online, trash talkers, modernists, feminists, and a lot of these modernists and feminists actually think they're traditionalists, by the way. Modernists and feminists were saying, oh, this is going to be a sausage fest. It's going to be all men. It's nothing of the sort. The quality of the applicant pool of young, pretty virgins, and even 28, 32-year-old pretty virgins who are female, was staggering. And it was such a white pill to talk to these young women that we were like, well, we can't deny this lady. We can't deny this lady. We can't deny this lady. So we ended up taking like 72 in the first round to get 15. And now it's just piling up. It's piling up. So the smack talkers that said it was going to be a sausage fest, can I just say, ha?
That's like do the Niles Crane. Ha.
Yeah. I mean, but it's kind of a workload, and it's become something of a from home, almost full-time job. But it feels like really holy work as we're getting these first couples paired. It's quite a thing. And I was telling Pearl about it on Pearly Things, and she's a lapsed Catholic, but I think doing mostly good work, attacking feminists really robustly.
Right.
But you could just tell she's kind of jaded by the world because she's out there in the secular world, and so she didn't even know whether or not to believe some of it. But it's really, really important that folks out there understand it's toxin. It is poisonous toxin. Anyone out there, whether they call themselves a conservative or even a traditionalist, that has attacked the patriarchy or attacked wifely submission, this is a false gospel, okay? And that's why we're hard on anyone that's in the mainstream center church, obviously left Caths, mainstream center right church, even mainstream trads have been silent or negative about the main element in attacking feminism, about the main element in reestablishing household patriarchy, which is must have wifely submission. So if you're a fan of Ascension Presents, enjoy that. I mean, probably not a lot of conceptual overlap on the household patriarchy or many other things with us. So enjoy that. We're not telling you not to listen to them. It's just they're going to be telling you dead opposite things to this channel the way, it's dead opposite if you were to go listen to National Catholic Reporter or something like that. They're telling you far closer things, I think identical things, to what you'd hear at National Catholic Reporter.
And it's not surprising to me when I'm looking at the advice that even like good priests are giving young people, and the lack of advice that parents are giving to young people, that we have this issue, that we have applicants that are saying the same thing. Like, it's hard for us to meet people because they're getting bad advice. And frankly, a lot of the great people that we even have, you know, you can tell that they're coming in with some bad advice from somebody, like girls who are being told, like, guys want like a strong, independent woman. They don't.
They do not.
They don't want that. And so a lot of these women, it's really, really very sad because, you know, I'm not even talking about our applicant pool. I'm talking about people I've known in the past where it's like they reach a certain age, an advanced age. They'll be mid-30s and they've been told their whole lives, like, hey, men really want an earner. They want a woman who's independent and strong and will direct and a natural born leader. Men do not want that. So then they're reaching their 30s and their 40s and they're like, why am I single? Why am I single? I don't get it. I'm done what I've been told to do. And the answer is because you got sold a pack of lies from your parents or from these just liberal priests. And unfortunately, it's playing out in real life. And
What's
you're
the
single.
pack of lies? Can we enumerate those? Well,
Yeah.
let's go through them.
Yeah.
I can help.
Yeah.
One,
For women particularly,
for
or
women
for men?
particularly, go to college. You said be a strong, independent woman. That always involves going to college
I'll talk
and
this-
taking on debt.
Yeah.
Usually, men don't care whether you have a college degree.
As a matter of fact, they probably wish that you didn't, honestly, ladies.
Right.
Like, what a man wants a woman for isn't, you know, Tim and I have nice, intellectual, fun conversations, but I don't have a college degree. It's because I've taken some books and opened them myself and say, hey, let's talk about this, or we've read books together. Honestly, like, most of the guys I know, it's like if their woman has some random degree in communications or business or whatever it is, they're not interested.
And,
They're
they're
really
not interested, and they're like, man, I wish you and I had for our lives together the $85,000 that degree cost. You flushed it down the toilet. Now, the only exceptions are if a woman studied theology or philosophy, which are purely speculative. Mm-hmm. They will be able to pass that on to their kids. Most women haven't studied these things.
Right.
They have a glorified trade degree, which is another problem with even male college degrees. Most of them get glorified trade degrees, which are utterly worthless once a woman's staying home. So generally speaking, don't go to college. If you're going to go, study philosophy or theology, and we're actually not the misogynists you might expect. If women are going to college, have them study these highest things. That sounds uncharacteristically unmisogynist of us.
Yeah.
But that's one of them. The other one is, if you are a young woman that got sold the pack of lies, it's 99% of our listeners, 97% of our listeners, let's say. And you're like, look, I'm 32 now, I'm 36 now, I'm still looking for a guy. It's not too late. It's not. Join Return, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. But what did I do? I had to work then, and I got sold by my boomer parents, go to college, which was a lie. So I had to do something. So is it fine that I've been a lawyer or a doctor or a pharmacist or a landscape architect since I graduated college? Well, of course that's fine. Single women are allowed to work outside the home and expected to.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be prolonging those years. They should be trying to get married right out of high school. That's the key. That's the key to the patriarchy, is getting young women married right out of high school. But yeah, you have to work. Here's the one fallacy we keep coming across in our 35-year-old applicants, female, who are otherwise realistic. This thing. They'll be like, well, so I want a guy that's at least interested in what I've been doing. No, there's a lot of daylight between he understands you had to work, he understands you have a degree, hopefully you don't have any debt you're going to be passing off to him. But if you do and he likes you enough, he'll take it. There's a lot of daylight between understanding what you've been doing for the last decade or 15 years, and on the other hand, wanting to hear about it.
Yeah.
Right. Because some of the women have said, "Oh, I want my guy to be interested in at least what I've been doing, even if I'm willing to quit." That's not how guys are wired, right? What you've been doing is working, operating, existing in a male world for the last 10 years, and he'll probably tolerate it if he likes you, but he's not going to be interested in it the way he might be interested in hearing about his buddy's job. He's going to want to tuck that neatly into your past and say, "Okay, I understand that. Don't expect me to talk to you like another guy about being the sole breadwinner. Let's just tuck that neatly into your past. Leave it there. Now you're my homemaking wife. Now we can let the patriarchy, beautiful things, sanctifying things, familial things happen."
And nobody wants to hear about anybody's job, let's be honest. I haven't heard a man talking about his job in detail where I'm like fascinated. And and that would even include if I happen to have met like a NASA scientist or somebody who's been to the moon. I'd just be like, can we talk about anything else? Your jobs are boring. Nobody likes talking about those anyway. But what's funny about this, some of the women applicants too that haven't gone to college, which has been so endearing, is that I'll ask them like, what are your interests and hobbies? And they'll say, well, I just honestly like cooking and baking. And I'm like, perfect. That's what men want. They want a woman who likes to be home, baking, beautifying, like just chipper.
How many have said that?
Oh, so many have said that because the society lies to them. And they say, hey, if you're a woman who enjoys sewing, baking, cooking, and just kind of like being at home, you're boring, you're dull, you have nothing to offer. It's the opposite. All the guys that I've interviewed or know, they find the women who think their jobs are super badass and interesting dull and so annoying.
Dull, and it gets manly. So this is, remember, we're enumerating the pack of lies. You said pack of lies. I said, what are they? We went through the first one. This is the second major lie that even these good girls keep hitting us with. They're like, look, exactly like Steph said, they'll all say, is it fair for me to say I just like baking, cooking, sewing, even cleaning? They'll giggle and they're kind of embarrassed. We're like, no, this is what men want. This is nature. Your moms, and in a lot of cases, even your grandmas, have been selling you the lie that goes against nature. And you can't go against nature for more than a couple generations.
No.
Nature has come home to roost. And so what do men want? Men want women that have interesting hobbies, which are beautifying, cooking, cleaning, sewing, baking. That's what they like. And
Every
the women
time.
are like, I like stitchcraft and baking. Is that too boring to say? No. Every man's like, ding, sign me up. Every single man wants that.
Yeah, they're like, wait, she doesn't have college debt. Wait, she doesn't have a job. She likes to bake. Perfect woman.
Girls will also say, as part of the pack of lie, I'm sorry, I'm such a klutz. I'm not, particularly if she's thin and pretty. I'm such a klutz. I've never been athletic. Like it. That's part of the lie. A klutzy, thin, pretty woman sounds very, very cute and feminine. Athletic girls mean they have too high a testosterone.
They're very competitive.
This means they've been mannishly competitive. They've been pushed into a form of gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
You know you come here for the straight dough.
Yeah, we're giving you the
And they've
straight
probably struggled at some point intermittently in and out of the female athlete triad. What is that? That's where they had so much testosterone in their system that they started missing their periods. This is something that happens not only at the levels of professional or Olympic level female gymnasts. This is something that some studies show up to 40% of even low level, it's all female sports, so it's all low level, but lowest level female high school JV sport athletes, 40% of them start missing their periods because of too much testosterone. What does testosterone do for a man? It makes him extra virile. What does it do for a woman? It makes her half man, and it makes her less virile. So that's part of the pack of lies, that even these sweet trad girls that mostly get it are still embarrassed about being a sign of contradiction about it. It's like, no, be happy you're only into stitchcraft, baking, cooking, sewing, things like that, gardening, beautifying. That's very attractive. Be happy you never got conned into playing a quote-unquote female sport, okay? This is what the men all have wanted, and we weren't trying to do a show on this. We were trying to do a show on how the institutions have been captured, meaning the big Catholic colleges are not Catholic. Notre Dame, the Jesbian institutions, right? Georgetown included as the best member of that. You know them. They're simply not Catholic, but young people that have gone to the faithful Catholic colleges, the Newman Guide colleges, guess what? Every single one that we've interviewed, I say, tell me about the dating experience at your Newman Guide college.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
Let's talk about
this. Okay, this is another thing that's going to make people so mad. Guys, the women that go to your colleges, if you go to one of these Newman colleges, think you're wimps. Like, you gotta get your act together.
And they say they've reported a generally anti-romance philosophy by most of the Catholic Newman schools. So the guys, they're like, I like that they have a daily devotional. The guys don't tend to lift or try to make themselves attractive. The guys feel a sense of entitlement to meeting a wife just because he says a daily rosary. That doesn't work.
Nope.
You can't just be a holy guy. You have to be holy and attractive. What's going to attract her to you? Not just saying the rosary. And then you got to lift weights. And they also report that many of these Newman schools, I'm not saying all of them, some of them more infamously than others, more notoriously than others, have an anti-dating, anti-courtship, whatever you call it. There's not a distinction. They're not two different natural kinds, dating and courtship. I know you guys think there's a lot of them. It's all the same stuff. A lot of the Newman Guide colleges have made it very difficult, from a weird Catholic Puritanism that's not actually Catholic, for young women to meet young men there. The best thing that a young woman can do at college is to age out with the MRS degree one semester in. The colleges don't want that. Mm-hmm. Even the faithful Catholic ones.
They want you to stay in there.
They want your dollars.
Stay
That's
in there.
Not
get your degree. It's like, no, the happiest women I know, like, either did college a little bit, met their husbands and bailed, or just didn't do it at all.
Yeah, if you can.
It wastes your time. If you're going to be at home being a wife and a mom, like, what? Why? Why debt? Why be in that smut? I don't get it. And even like the good faithful Catholic ones where they're discouraging dating, it's like, unless you're entering into a religious life, why would you not be just focused on meeting your husband? I do not understand. I do not get it.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, all this makes sense from the perspective of, I'm not going to say which professor it is, but a well-known Catholic professor is like, hey, I think the Don't Go to College book is a mistake. It's like, well, shocker, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm a kind of academic that's like, look, the whole system is corrupt. Get out. It's Chinatown. And the Catholic professors, some of which are at Newman Guide schools, some of which are at public school, public community colleges or something like that, that are trying to stay the course. They're like, I think Don't Go to College is a bad message. Well, shocker, because that goes directly against your lifestyle accoutrements. But similarly, I'd say, okay, let's test out each side of the equation. We say generally, not absolutely, but generally, don't go to college, young people, especially young women. If you're going to go, study enough philosophy and theology. You don't need a degree. Study as many classes as you can until you meet your husband, then drop out. So you're not giving these colleges any more of your money than they have a rights to.
And time.
You don't need a degree. You don't need the most precious resource is time. Take a semester's worth of philosophy and theology, and if you meet your husband, bail. Now, I know they don't like that, but they're like, well, get your degree. You only need that degree if you're planning to try to enter the workforce or something with it. You don't need that. You want to know philosophy and theology so you can be a better homeschooler to your kids if you're really Catholic. That's what you ought to be doing. Whereas we're saying, don't go. Marry your high school sweetheart. You can read books the way Steph has, enriched her mind.
Or just marry a philosopher and he'll teach you that himself.
Right. Marry the man and teach you. That's fun also. So, but if you haven't met someone by the time you graduate high school, okay, fine. Go to a Newman Guide school. That's fine. And be looking to bail, to dip after one semester or two. We know plenty of women that have done that. So you see how, if you broaden your mind a little bit, this is where Rules for Retrogrades ends up having not clean border disputes. We end up having border disputes because we are not just like, hey, we're Catholic, go to the traditional Catholic colleges. Even that has so much feminism and modernism baked into it. We're like, yeah, look, the Catholic Newman Guide colleges are okay for what they are. The college system is feminist. It's wasting the best years, the most fertile years of a woman's life when she has most of her eggs. Should be looking to get married at 18, 19, 20, I should say. And college is right in the middle of that. The population control people encourage women to go to college for this exact reason. So
they want them to get married later, have babies later, be in debt. Then what do? You secure the two-income trap, right? Women going to college, getting a ton of debt, get married, and then they're like, I have to work to pay off this debt. Do you guys not see what's happening here? It's very obvious what they're doing to women. Taking them out of their house, their comfortable, protected, lovely homes, and throwing them into society, putting them in debt, making sure that they marry whenever they're beyond their most fertile years. And it's been a flaming disaster.
Yeah. Now, another failed institution, an overrun institution, is of course the local parish, who's failed young people. Their youth nights, their life teen events are absolutely corrupt modernism. But even just at the level of donut meetings for young people, these have been utterly disregarded because they're utterly lame. They should be having meet and greets for all 16, 17, 18-year-olds. Meet your future spouse here. And I don't mean just, it's a dance. I mean, they ought to be calling the meet and greets. Hey, if you're 16 or above, meet your future spouse. That way your parents can get an idea who their family is, right? We don't have an overly onerous view of the parents' role in this, but the parents should be the ones that are meeting each other and being like, hey, I think our kids would be good for each other. Let's you and I, the two fathers, become friends, and then we'll have a real good sense of whether or not this can happen. And of course, the young people have to be in love and pick up the ball and run with it on their own. But this is a combination critique of the local parishes, which have failed young people, and the fathers, even if they call themselves traditional fathers, have failed the young people by thinking, instead of the best thing I can do is keep my eye out for a future husband or a future wife for my young person, my teenager, I paid for Catholic school and I sent him to college. That's the wrong attitude.
That is the worst. And also, it's like we talk about this a lot. Like, it's not just the Catholic fathers; it's the Catholic mothers who are instructing their daughters. What we're addressing here is we have a fundamental broken system of instruction in our Catholic communities, from the priests down to the parishioners, from the parents down to the kids. The mothers are out of control, feminist, nagging harpies for the most part. And so what do their daughters see? They see their mothers treating their fathers that way. It colors marriage badly. It colors being a housewife badly. What we need to do is what we've really tried to do is to just recapture the beauty of the domestic church, that the woman is a happy, loving, supportive wife who is beautifying the place and really looking at her vocation as a wife and a mother with intense scrutiny and constantly looking at ways to improve. The husband is the protector. He's the leader of the household. He's a spiritual head, and he's constantly looking at ways to be more like St. Joseph. If we have instruction like that from the parents, from both parents showing their young men and women, then they're going to be out in the dating pool with a much better sense of what a relationship should be and how to conduct it. Right? What we have right now is we have priests, Father Mike Schmidt's telling women wrong things. You don't have to be submissive. And so we have just an abundance of people in our society whose expectations of what they're expecting are way off. They're way off. Men saying, this is what I expect of women. Women saying this is what they expect of men. And none of it's realistic at all. And none of it works. And that's why we have divorce everywhere.
Yeah. The more I think about it, it's a real weird time we live in. It's a real weird paradox of being a trad that honestly, that not all. You have a robust 5% of probably trad dads that have operated their households this way, particularly with their daughters. You should do it with your sons as well.
Yep.
So you have 5% there. You probably have 0% of Novus Ordo people that have done this. They're like, I thought you just sent them to college.
They went to 12 years of Catholic school. How many times did I hear that? I sent my kids to 12 years of Catholic school.
But, that's exactly right. I just think it's weird that we have to say this. As well-known traditionalists or whatever, people that are, big critics of modernism in the church, and with an audience that's the same way, it's like, it's just a strange time. It's a strange thing to have to comment on. It's a strange role to fill, to be a matchmaker. This is not what I ever wanted to do or set out to do. But when we talk to the women, it's so striking that this is a market need that they need to be put together because their fathers didn't do it. Their fathers bought into the lies of the world, even the trad fathers. And they don't have anyone in their area. Yes, they're probably going to have to meet someone in another American city. And it's like, okay, we're filling that function, that ergon. But another thing that has failed these young women that I think you could speak to kind of in this last segment is, here's what you really need to hear.
Yeah.
Here's what you really need to hear. We kind of pre-covered some of it.
Keeping a man's attention, I'll be 41 this week. Keeping a man's attention requires a lot of care and diligence and attention to yourself. And I have 7 kids. My weight has gone up and down with all those kids. I just had one recently, so I'm hitting the Peloton again. And it's not because my husband is shallow or anything, but it's like you have to understand. I think what's going on with a lot of these Catholic moms is that they're putting women out into the society that don't have a realistic conception on how to keep a man's attention and how to keep a man happy for the rest of their lives. It's easy to keep a man's attention when you're 20 and you're fit and you're cute and you're just married and you're Twitter-pated. It becomes much more. This is where I like to, I really respect the women in our society who have been married for 30 years, 40 years, and their husbands are still just as into them. Those are the women, by the way, ladies, you need to be following and taking diligent notes from.
Well, and St. Paul says these are the women that should be instructing the younger women as to how to be good wives. But wait, I think I heard something in what you said that people are going to misinterpret. They're thinking, oh, well, you can't be young, and 20-year-old women are like almost automatically pretty. 2/3 of them, 3/4 of them. You know, as long as there's no weight problem, and it's easier to not have a weight problem then. Yeah. You said young and pretty and blah, blah, blah. You need to figure out a way, like psychologically, to keep your men's attention when you're 40, when you're 50. I think people are going to be thinking you're buying somewhat into body positivity, which you're not.
I'm saying that I'm 41 years old. It takes me way longer to lose weight after a baby. Just facts. I have to spend more time watching my diet. My husband understandably wants like a healthy weight. Duh. I mean, it's just obvious. It's only become political because women freak out when anybody dares to tell them that. But it's the truth. Men deserve and want. Women want taller men. Men want fitter women. It's just obvious.
Yeah. So that's a key. It's not. I think people were getting ready to hearing what they're used to hearing, which is like, I'm 50. I can't be thin anymore. It's like, well, you can't. You might not be. You might start getting some wrinkles. You can't help that because that's 50. You might be getting some gray hairs popping up.
I do.
Portion. Well, I don't mean you. You're not 50 anyway.
Hey, I do. I actually do have gray.
But one thing you can control, my friends, and I know Americans are loath to hear this because as a nation we're fat, but one thing you can control is portion. That's what you're supposed to do anyway. Speak to your cardiologist.
Right.
So what we're telling people, whether there are 35-year-old women, 30, 25, 20, is before you sign up and make us tell you this.
Because I will tell you this. I have already told several women
Drop
this.
the weight. All you have to do, and if you hate exercising, the way a lot of people do, that's fine. Just fast, diet. I mean, it's so simple, yet for Americans, and Europeans don't get it. Why are Americans so fat? I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the food additives.
It's only Americans think that it's like a normal. Like when we lived in Italy, it was like I became more and more and more embarrassed of this from our country because the European nations think we're disgusting. And I know that most Americans are like, well, who cares what those people think? But they are right.
They're thin. Why are you, they think we're like the humans on WALL-E. Remember
like
those...
in like the pods just drinking like they're thirsty 2 ounces of soda like on the way.
Just stop. If you don't want to,
people are gonna be so mad.
The best thing is exercise and diet. If you're really, really lazy and you only want to do one, diet. Okay? You can get thin. It's very hard to get thin just by diet alone, or by exercise alone. You can get thin by diet alone, however. So if you're only going to do one, get into intermittent fasting. Get into aggressive intermittent fasting. My friend, Father Alan Benander, fasted 66 days. Okay, and he wasn't fat to begin with by American standards. He had a little extra weight to begin, and like. Do that. Just do a 40-day fast.
Yeah.
If it's really important to you, if you're like, look, I don't want I don't have a vocation. I don't foresee the religious life. I feel like my vocation is getting married and having kids, but I've always been husky. I've always been, 25, 30 pounds overweight. Fast. It's very simple. I mean, this ain't medical advice. It is personal advice. And this is what we're telling people. We're not telling men you should. Steph is saying, well, it's not that men want thin, pretty women because they're shallow. It's because men want thin, pretty women because they're male.
Yeah, and women want taller, like non-porn addled, like creeps because they're just because that's what they want. And also, I'll address too, like when you reach a certain age, like I understand, like that can become a touchy issue. Like, oh, I'm in my 40s and my 50s, it's harder for me to do this. Like, I'm not suggesting, and I think this is so disgusting in society right now, where these women are just like filling their face with plastics and getting plastic butts and all that. Age naturally, but you have to pay attention to yourself. And unfortunately in America, what I'm seeing right now is just a lot of wives, whatever their natural assets may be, they're just letting themselves go, or even young single women are just letting themselves go, and they have this attitude of that he'll take what he gets. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's just, that's wrong. You'll stay single, or your husband will be unhappy. It's just the truth.
Now, young men, and that's the main thing. You can't go back in time unless you have like an 85 DeLorean that happens to have 1.21 gigawatts to flush into the flux capacitor. You can't change your body count, but you change what you could change. And same thing, young men and young women, both of you want each other with a lower body count, hopefully virgins. That's a well-ordered desire, just as men wanting thin women is a well-ordered desire. Well, it's natural for women to want a tall man. Men, as you well know, if you're short men out there and you want a wife, you can't help that. But what you can help is muscle. Because what all the women say is, I feel like I'm attracted to tall men because of a safety thing. I'm always like, you're safer with a stocky dude that knows how to fight and has big muscles than Sean Bradley.
But we don't know that. From us, you ask any woman, I couldn't tell you, if you lined like 10 guys up, I couldn't tell you how tall any of them are. Women are just looking at a man and they're like, is he bigger than I am? And usually that translates, that's why we always talk about height. But like I said earlier, if you're a short guy and you're single and you're like, hey, I'm not attracting attention from women, I need to do something, just gain muscle, gain bulk, and you will. That can be fixed.
Right. And men. So this is if people are interested in applying to this, as many more have been and are asking me, emails flooded with people that want to have a match made. Before you do so, we'll have an open round soon. We do actually need men more than women at this point, which is the exact opposite of the expectations of tons of dweebs out there that we're smack talking online.
Yeah.
We need men more than women, but we'll take more of both very shortly. Take a couple of weeks while we're getting the preliminary matches completed to start fasting now. Men, start lifting now. Begin an exercise routine. Most of you guys are out there, you have a prayer routine, but why not fasting? And yes, fasting is also spiritual.
We're body and soul.
We're body and soul. We're
And that's
Aristotelians.
Why people might look at this whole podcast and be like, oh, this is very vain. Hey, you're not being realistic. Yeah. We're creatures with bodies and souls.
It is vain.
In a relationship, if you want to keep your husband and your wife's attention for 50 plus years, you got to take care of the body too. It's not just the soul. And the verdict is in with a lot of these young people. It's like the women outright say it. They're like, listen, when I go to these Catholic colleges, I like the fact the guy's Catholic, but he's not manly.
He's a dweeb.
And that's the deal breaker for me. And that's what we're hearing.
I will not marry a guy just because he says the rosary.
Yeah, no.
I want a guy that is manly, has a good personality, is not afraid of his own shadow, maybe speaks with a booming voice. That they're still women, right? See, what I'm even seeing some comments in the chat. A lot of you are Manichaeans. If you think, hey, I pray a rosary, ladies, I weigh 120 pounds, and I'm a waif, and I'm afraid of my own shadow, and I've never raised my voice in my life, so women should like that. They should take me a holy guy. No, they're not going to be sexually attracted to you. Sexual attraction means that a woman will desire you. Right. Just as you want a pretty, thin wife because you desire her. and will continue to desire her into old age. That is what it means to be married. Look it up in Catholic Encyclopedia, New Advent. Look it up in the Catechism. Men and women should be attracted to each other.
Well, those guys should
long
be
into marriage.
Those guys should be priests. It's like, listen, that's how it works in a marriage. Like, yeah, of course, there's in our marriage, I love about him. He's the spiritual head of the household, but I need other things. It's not just that. And that is what these women are saying. They're like, a lot of them are saying outright, they're like, I'd rather date a guy who's like a man and a Protestant and then convert him over to Catholicism than date some of these guys who are Catholic who are just coasting on the fact they're Catholic and they're not working on anything else. It's body and soul. And it's an unpopular thing to say, but it's the truth.
No, because it's the truth.
In
our day, it's an unpopular thing to say because it's the truth. And I don't just mean with the woke left.
Yeah.
I mean with a lot of you guys out there listening too. Oh, but shouldn't we tell a woman she's beautiful no matter what? Like a beautiful special snowflake? No. Shouldn't we tell a young man that he's going to be a great husband just because he learned how to pray the rosary? No. That's not all it takes. Aren't all these young people, whether or not they know how to be a successful man or woman, good as a spouse, even though they'll be bad as a spouse just because they go to the TLM? No. The answer is no, no, no. You have to be tough if you're a man. You have to be manly. You have to be ladylike and beautiful and desirable if you're a woman. That's what it is to be womanly. Yes, all the other stuff is true. It's a both and. That's great you do your daily devotional. That's great that the young men wanted to study Catholic philosophy or theology. You got to have something that you bring to the table as a part of the sexual dynamic too. And all of you who might not like this, who have been married a long time, or some of them were priests that are kind of out of the game. They're definitely out of the game. You better be out of the game. Yeah, you're just the chirping sectaries, right? You're another country heard from. The people that are in this, the women that are in this are like, this is all right. The men that are in this are like, thank you. Thank you. We're telling people not only, here's your match, we're saying, do this. You're cool. This girl's going to like you, but do this. Steph's telling the ladies, here's your match. This guy thinks you're pretty. Do this. Maybe try your hair this way. Dress this way.
Stop talking about your job so much.
Men and
don't
women.
Care about that.
Especially women don't talk about your job. Men want to just pretend that never happened. Men don't talk about your job.
Well, the only time a man wants to hear a woman talking about her job is when she says, I'm going to quit my job and be a stay-at-home wife.
And sit home and learn to cook your most favorite meals.
Yeah, that's only that time
job.
It's interesting.
That's fun. You don't want to hear about anything else, right?
And also the ladies, by the way, were overwhelmingly, they loved the fact that they're free and the men pay. Because for them, they're like, listen, if this guy can't afford this service and he can't afford a wife, and it helps weed out some of the weirdo incels that are just wanting to gripe all day long on internet and Twitter. So they actually loved that. So the verdict is in on that one too.
Yeah. Also, we just want to take the moment, because this is really a white pill. It's just been a white pill to see so many beautiful young people with great personalities that we've talked to. I mean, that's the takeaway. They were either you, parish orphans and retrogrades, best audience out there, or a lot of them came from Catholic family life. Is that Olivia Bliss?
Bliss. Oh, Olivia Bliss, if she sees this, God bless you, ma'am.
So many people came over from that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you did such good work just by giving us a fair word. And maybe you or your husband pay attention to the show, but thank you. And also Olivia's got nothing but love for Ask Your Husband. Just a cool Catholic family, and on a different media space than we are right there on Instagram. So if you are on Instagram, go check them out. They are good people.
She is really, whatever she's doing really well, because all the women that have come to us from her
are cool.
Haven't watched our stuff, a lot of them, but I liked them immediately. I like so many of these women's interviews. I'd be like, how'd you hear from us? And they're like, Olivia Bliss. And then we get talking about patriarchy and wifely submission. And I'm like, this woman gets it. Yeah, she gets it. So lots of love going to her. Yeah, we've loved it. I mean, I've really, just to say a word on this, I've really enjoyed having these interviews. We personally interview almost all of the people that come through, and I've really just liked the people that we've gotten to know and talk to. It has been really great. And I tell Tim this all the time. All the women that we've interviewed, they're just, I tell him, I was like, I just have like a mother's heart for them. They're just darling, and I just want them to have a good husband, because some of them are just so sweet and just lovely, lovely ladies. So I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, she gets it. Like the Manichaeans out there that are saying, you know, someone should just be beautiful inside but not outside, or the red pill community that think all that matters about a woman is her exterior beauty. Well, I guess they say she should be virtuous too, though they have a hypocritical attitude about abstinence, male abstinence versus female abstinence. It's both. It's both and. What young people are all looking for and are finding in spades on return matchmaking, RETVRN.us, are other young people, a young man with a young woman and vice versa, who are beautiful inside and outside. And we've enjoyed so many of the interviews we've done so far. We just want to say thanks to you guys. Mm-hmm. So many young spouses are meeting each other. Future spouses are meeting each other today, yesterday, tomorrow.
We have, I think, 6 couples meeting today. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, our first big batch of them. It's been really exciting. So if you're interested, we especially need the men. Go to return.us, RETVRN.us. Also, folks out there, please, please, please follow our Rumble channel. Go to Rumble, follow it, subscribe to it. If you're not subscribed to this channel, like and subscribe to both YouTube and Rumble. We're on borrowed time here, but while we have it, still subscribe to us. Last but not least, I'm telling you now, Agenda 2030 includes with it plans for aggressive stuff that should hit by 2027. The least you can do, which I'm not saying it's a complete solve, is to get to a red state. Get to a red state. I suggest the swath of states from Texas to Florida. It's where we came, literally from California. We had no relatives out here. We've had friends follow us out here, and it's a great place. Go to realestateforlife.org and make your move before the election happens, and that's years before the next round of the beer bug, which might not have anything to do with a bug, but there's other stuff coming down the pike. Look up Bluebeam. There's more stuff coming down. Get to a red state as soon as you can. Go to realestateforlife.org. Did you have anything else, Debbie?
No, I just have been having a nice time talking to all these people. We've been very encouraged. I would just say, if you're a mother and a father, a priest out there, start really giving our young Catholic men and women a very more realistic and true version of what it takes to be a good Catholic man or wife and husband, and what the other sex is actually looking for, because you're wasting these young people's time.
Yeah.
And we're finding out that they'll be in their mid-20s, late 30s, and then they start to get it, and they've wasted the best parts of their life under a pack of lies. So I would just ask you to be more intentional about the truth, even if it kind of stings at first. They'll be happier for it in the long run.
Yep. Women, be thin and virtuous. Males, be strong and virtuous. We're helping you find each other. Go to www.retrograde.us with Will and Rachel Noland, our fellow matchmakers. God bless you all. We'll be back with another show in a couple of days. We're going to be talking about, I guess I will be, talking about the synod. I'm getting sick of talking about the synod. Everything's a black pill. I'm interested in talking about white pills. That's why we're doing this. I'm interested in being positive, even though the sky is falling, which it is. It is, actually. But we'll be back with some more bad news on Thursday. Sorry to take a break from the bad news to talk about the good news of matchmaking, getting together young, faithful, beautiful Catholic families. Sorry, I'll be back in character saying, it's all black pills on Thursday.
Everything's horrible.
So horrible. God bless.
Bye.